Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pink Atheist. I'm your host, the Godless Vagina, and with me today is my co-host, who is now called the Antichrist. Hi, Jimmy.
Well, hello, everyone. Yes, I got that new handle through Twitter. Thank you, Twitter. And we do have an exciting show for you this week. We're going to be talking with the President-elect for Atheist Alliance of America on the show shortly. And we're also going to talk about the Curiosity Moon Mars rover and a few other hot topic issues like the religious dogma and politics.
Yeah, and at some point today in the show, what we're going to have happen is Chuck Von Der Hee, the newly elected president of Atheist Alliance of America, will be calling in, and he'll be with us. So we might have to actually stop the show for a few minutes and interview him and then go back to what we were initially talking about.
That's right. And I guess I'll get on to the news topics for today. We're not going to bring very many in, but one I did want to talk about was a Pakistani girl who is being held prisoner for allegedly burning the Quran. I'm going to try to pronounce her name right. Risha Mashi, is that correct?
Risha Mashi, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It has also been discovered that this week that the police have tried or have planted that evidence, and that this girl did not actually do that. She's 11 years old and is suffering from Down syndrome. So.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to show the dramatic stance of the Muslim religion, because they try to say that they're a religion of peace, but what we see is that any areas that they encompass, they can't live in peace, and they try to be extremist in a lot of manners. And it's interesting that this happened because I know that the reports are conflicting, saying that possibly she has Down syndrome or some type of mental disorder where she's not fully capacitated to understand everything. And the idea that she was framed by a mullah is just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It actually looks like, Rachel, that we may go ahead and go to Chuck before we go to the rest of our news stories and curiosity. So let's see. I do believe this is Chuck on the line.
Oh, wonderful.
Welcome to the Pink Atheist.
Thank you, guys. How are you?
We're doing real good. How are you doing, Chuck?
Good. I'm a little bit harried, but it's settling down. Everything's starting to settle in some.
Great. And we're glad to have you on the show today. We did want to ask you a few questions and then give you a chance to talk for a minute.
Okay.
First of all, what are your plans for the future of Atheist Alliance of America?
Well, number one, we've got several areas of the country where we've got holes. Mobile, Alabama being one, and the whole panhandle of Florida. So we want to go ahead and expand the number of affiliates that we've got in those areas. Another one, surprisingly, that we've got a hole is Pacific Northwest. And I've already been working on a couple of places up there that we're going to be able to get. We've got one affiliate up there that's already working on becoming a full affiliate. So that, along with the individual membership, and also getting affiliates more involved with our day-to-day operations.
Great. All right. Let me see. I'll go on to another question. What about? We're going to get into talking in a few minutes about not the president of AAFA, but the president of the United States that are the elects right now and their religious views. Do you have anything you'd like to offer in that?
My own feeling, I have really done an extensive study on Mormonism over the years, and people that aren't familiar, even people that are Mormons, don't know that much about their religion. For the people that are listening in Mobile, I know that there is one book over at the West Mobile Public Library on the Mormons. Very, very complete book. It was written in the late 80s, I believe, and they attempted to block it several times. But one of the stated goals of the Mormon faith is to take over the country, to take over the government by coming in at the executive level branch. Looks like we might see that unfolding here.
I believe we are seeing that unfold, and I'm glad you brought that up. Is there any other thing you want to talk about your presidency with the AAFA?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I'm still trying to get, my feet settled on the ground here a little bit. We really had a great convention out here. I was going to try to grab Emmett Nutting and have him come up and get on with me. Unfortunately, he's getting on stage right now as we speak to talk, so there wasn't any way for Emmett to come and join us. He's such a great guy. I love him. We've just had some really dynamic speakers through the week, and last night we presented Richard Dawkins Foundation Award, for the Richard Dawkins Award to Eugenie Scott for the work that she's done for years. She's the national director for she's the executive director of the National Center for Science Education. She's the one that's responsible for really keeping the teaching of creationism out of the schools. I think Eugenie has probably done more of that than anyone else in the country. Just a real pleasure to be able to sit with her last night and talk. And, she's additionally an idol of mine, not only because of her work for that, but I am a huge Kentucky fan, and she was a professor at the University of Kentucky from 1973 until 1980.
Interesting. How do you see this changing in your life? This is a big step, a huge step, and I'd like to congratulate you first of all, but then ask how is this going to affect you? Well,
Jimmy, you know me already. You know that I don't sleep about 3 or 4 hours a night. The only change I see is maybe eliminating it completely. I don't know if I'm going to have time to do anything. No, it's not going to be that much of a change. It's going to be a lot of administrative work. It's all going to be done from my home. We only meet in person. The board only meets in person one time a year. But I also wind up, in addition to with AAA, we're also very active with Secular Student Alliance as an organization, and I pick up a board membership on the Secular Coalition for America. So, as a matter of fact, I've got a board meeting I've got to go through with them relatively soon. So, it's going to kind of cut into the social life that I don't have to begin with, so that's no big deal. I may miss a couple of Friday nights that our Friday night big chill. But other than that, I don't really see that much an additional thing, except for it's going to be a lot of downtime on the computer doing a lot of administrative work.
Cool. And we would miss you if we do miss you at those outings. And we haven't mentioned that, Chuck. You also have a position with us here at Mobile Atheist Community.
Yeah, the president's position on that one, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I want to expand it a little bit more. As a matter of fact, I've already reached out to a couple of people down here. If nothing else, I want to get them involved with a webcast, a couple of the speakers that have been here. And they're rather, enthusiastic to do it, but they want to help support our local group down there. So, if anything, the position here is really going to help our local group.
Great. And we're looking forward to it.
Oh, good. I'm going to ask about some hometown news real quick, Jimmy. How did the movie night go last night?
I did the football thing last night, but my understanding is the movie thing went off without a hitch and went really well.
Okay, how'd football go?
So football went well. Alabama won 34-14, so I'm going to just say that. That's the last of the Bama stuff.
All right. Well, anything else you need to know? I've got a few more minutes here.
All right, Rachel, do you have anything?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Rachel.
Okay.
How are you doing?
So, sorry, I'm trying to deal with background issues here, so I'm just being a little quiet because of that.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask, I know that Jimmy asked pretty much everything, but I know it's exciting and you're going to have a lot of, busy times and a very busy schedule this year. So you do plan to continue your effort with the mobile atheist community, though?
Oh, absolutely. I don't see where this is going to be any conflict with my time or anything else there. Like I said, all this is going to do is require a little bit of travel. But most of the time, it's going to be administrative work that, Rachel, if you and I don't know each other, Jimmy will tell you, I think maybe 3 hours a night. And what I do is get up in the middle of the night and get on the computer. Well, all it's going to do is kind of reshift, I guess, the work that I'm doing on the computer. Instead of playing on Facebook, I'll be playing a little bit more into administrative type of things. So, but as far as the rest of my life, I don't see it making any impact at all.
Okay. Wow. And I'm sure that you're having a great time there at the convention, especially with Dawkins.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of fun here, and the nice part about it is the outgoing president is still responsible for this convention. So until we close at the end of tonight, he's still taking care of all the responsibility. I love it. I've been able to kind of sit back. The nice thing is I've been able to talk to a lot of the people. Richard Haynes, Brother Richard, for example, came up to me immediately and, Chuck, anything you can do, I can do to help you grow the organization, da-da-da-da. Richard and I have known each other for about 5 years now, and he was excited to see me come in as the new president. And immediately, offering any support he can do, even if it involves travel on his part or whatever to help us out. Richard, for the listeners on here that may not be familiar with him, Richard's also the one that runs the Atheist Next. So that'll give you a little background on him. But there have been several other people, haven't met a lot of other people have really been very supportive in coming to me and offering, any help that they can do, either towards this or even in our local group. So I'm real happy with what's going on.
Well, good. That's wonderful. I think that's great that you're doing this, and it's so astounding how small, an area can be, but how much we communicate and really get out there and interact with each other.
Yeah, this was a real surprise to me. I wasn't expecting to be in this position, but it was a last-minute thing where I was asked to go ahead and run, and fortunately I was selected. So I'm very pleased that the atheist community had enough faith in me to think that I could be the one, to help them move AA America on to the next step.
Yeah.
Did we lose each other? Oh, okay, there we are.
Yeah, here I am. Sorry, we're going through some technical difficulties, and it seems to only be on Sunday, so we're trying to check through everything and try to get it worked out. Second show,
Yeah, another thing that happened last night, we had Herb Silverman, who is the founder of Secular Coalition for America. He was one of our speakers last night. Herb is also a former president of Atheist Alliance. He wound up speaking and doing just an absolutely hilarious talk He ran for office down in South Carolina about 10 years ago. We wound up writing a book about it. And he gave us a play-by-play and a blow-by-blow last night of what was going on. And at the end of the night, he even did a little Q&A, and the winner would get a door prize. Well, the wound up the door prize was one of his bumper stickers that was left from his campaign. Earlier in the evening, we had Jessica Alquist speak. I'm sure you're familiar with Jessica. A little heroine of mine. I just love that girl. She is such a brave high school student, and to be able to take the stance that she's taken, and to be able to deal with the pressure of, having the spotlight thrown on her. She was absolutely fabulous at the Region rally, in front of 33,000 people, got up and just gave a whale of a talk. Loved it.
Wow.
Another one that spoke last night was Edwina Rogers. Edwina is the executive director of Secular Coalition for America. They are our lobbying group on the Hill. And she's running, taking care of that right now. She gave a great talk. I mean, everybody yesterday was really, really good. We just really had fun. Today we had some great speakers. We started out with P.Z. Meyer early this morning. We had Brother Richard talk. We had Brother Christina. Gentleman that it was the first time I met him, Tony Penn, who teaches black religion courses over at, got to give me a second, I'm trying to remember which university it is. It's one of them in Texas, right outside of Houston, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember which university. Give me just a second here, and I'll tell you. But
sure,
anyway, he gave a great talk. What it was Greta. Rice University. We had an interesting thing this morning. The actual topic of this morning's talk is what the atheist movement can learn from. So we brought Greta Christina in. It was the LGBT movement. Then Tony came in, and he gave a talk what we could learn from the civil rights movement. And then Richard had been a evangelical minister for years and years before he finally came out. So he did, what the atheist movement can learn from the Christian evangelical movement. And all three of the talks were just absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. Wow, those events are so wonderful. I really wish that I was there. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm running a little bit out of time here. I just looked down, and I've got to get back, down to the convention center here. But It was great talking to you all. Jimmy, you have any other questions or comments or anything?
No. We're still working through a few technical difficulties.
Okay.
I've actually had to mute out a part of this conversation. We believe it might be my phone that's causing the echo.
Okay.
But no, I'm glad to hear from you. I wished I'd have been with you this time. I was planning on going and things fell through, but I would have loved to have been there to see all this.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, having to change travel plans because of the hurricane was a real pain, but it worked out. It's just I'm not looking for the 5-hour drive from the airport once I get back in tomorrow afternoon. I'm blowing out of here. I'm blowing out of here at 6:15 from downtown, and I probably won't even get back to my house until after 8 tomorrow night. So it's going to be a long day, but I'm getting used to those.
Oh.
Anyway, well, great talking to both of you. You guys have a great weekend. What's left of it, we have a great Labor Day tomorrow, and I will talk to y'all soon.
All right. That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.
You betcha. Catch you guys later.
Okay, take care, Chuck.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, great talk with Chuck. I'm glad to get him on here.
And the line is now better, so I have to say that I'm very happy now.
All right. Well, back to our news because it actually folds into the next caller. We're going to do our weekly thing like we discussed and talk about the Curiosity rover on Mars. And I planned on doing this every week just to kind of give people a little rundown on what it's doing. And this week it did just about the same as last week, where it's moved around 70 feet during the week. That report came in Thursday. And we had a comment last week as far as, what capabilities was this thing going to have and what was it going to be able to look for. And for that, we're going to bring Ed on. So let's see. Ed, are you there?
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm here.
All right,
thanks for inviting me.
Oh, welcome to the show, Ed. We're so glad to have you.
I appreciate that, Rachel. I'm going to jump right into it. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the instrument packages on the Curiosity rover. Curiosity is there for one of its main goals is to see if Mars is or ever was capable of supporting biological life. They like to use the term microbial life. So for that, we're going to go to one of the first instrument packages. And by the way, there's 10 in all. The first one is called MASCAM for short. That's Mars Laboratory Mast Camera. That is mounted, of course, on the mast. It's up there. It's about eye level height. And it images the rover's surroundings. It can use high-res stereo and color photographs, and it also has the capability of high-definition video sequences. Now, besides giving scientists some really, really great photographs, along with the community that's interested, we can more or less look over their shoulder, if you will. The mission team also uses this camera to guide Curiosity around. Next up, number 2 on this list, is the Mars Hands Lens Imager. If any of you out there are familiar with geologists, they always carry this little magnifying glass around, and they just love to pick up rocks and scrutinize it with this little magnifying glass. Well, this is about the same thing. This is on the arm, the robotic arm of Curiosity, and pretty much that's what they're going to use that for. Moving on to the third. Let me flip a page here for a moment. This is the Mars.
Let me ask a question, if I can, real quick, Ed, about the first you brought up before we get off that subject too far. The images that it's shooting, is that also what it's using for navigation, or does it have other navigation stuff on board?
Well, that's actually in the engineering aspect of the rover and not part of the science aspect of it. But just to give you the short answer on that, Curiosity uses a variety of navigation cues. One of those cues is also coming off the Mars orbiter that it's also at this point using to relay data back here to Earth. So that's just one way of doing that. The MASCAM itself, picture yourself with a remote control car, if you will. But you're not outside with the car. You got a little webcam on it, and you're running around, and you're looking at it on your monitor. That's pretty much a very good analogy of what the MASCAM is doing for the mission team as far as being able to direct Curiosity where they want it to go. Also, remember, there's a pretty good time delay, so you'd have to wait. I think it's something like 8 minutes, but I could be wrong on that. So you get about maybe 16 minutes for you give it a direction. It goes through the sequence of carrying out that, and then it relays back a confirmation to you that it's actually doing that. Hope I answered that question there for you.
Yeah, that was what I was wondering, if that's how it was using, or if you knew of a navigation system that it was using.
Yeah, since we're going to be doing this, by the way, every week, next time I was actually going to focus on the engineering aspects, how the rover actually works, drive system for the wheels, its communication capabilities, computer control, very interesting power source on this particular vehicle, and look forward to covering that with you next week.
Cool. Well, I just jumped a week in advance then. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Jump ahead. You'll find that once we get done with all this, that all these systems are really interrelated. They work together. It's a very, very nice engineering package they came up with here.
It sounds like we can expect some wonderful things in the future from the Mars rover.
Oh, sure. This is one of the most sophisticated vehicles ever put on Mars. Don't want to take anything from Opportunity or the other smaller rovers, but this one here is quite a leap in technology. If there's anything there to find, I believe this rover here will find that. Getting into that, we're going to talk about the third package. This was the Mars Descent Imager. They call that MARDI for short. Go figure. Acronyms. I don't think these engineers could design anything without an acronym. What that did, as the spacecraft actually descended to the Mars surface, this particular instrument package was active and was taking a very nice high-definition video. And what that did, once the rover landed, it was secured on the land and separated from the sky crane. Engineers at JPL could better establish this exact position on the surface of Mars and see if it had reached, verify that it had reached its landing site. And from there we go to what's called the sample analysis on Mars. This is called SAM for short. This one here is quite a mouthful. We've got about 3 different packages involved in this one. These instruments are really in the interior of the Curiosity rover. That's where your analysis is going to take place. For example, if the robotic arm scoops up some soil, it's actually going to be depositing that sample in one of 3 scientific analyzers that will be able to analyze these samples on the spot and transmit that data back to JPL where they can further scrutinize it. See, where was I? That's SAM. Next up is ChemMin. That is Chemistry and Mineralogical Instrument. And that pretty much is mounted on its robotic arm. It will gather instruments. It uses X-ray diffraction and fluorescence to analyze individual elements that are present in rock, soil, or, ice. Might run into some ice out there. You never know.
Yeah. So I did have a question about this. As far as what they're looking for, I know that in the past we've had experiments where they've tested the soil and that they're looking for life of some form. So as far as that goes, are they looking for prokaryotic life? Are they looking for DNA, RNA, TNA?
Okay, the biological aspect is a bit out of my field, but I can comment on just where they're going with the instrument packages that they have on board. It looks to me like they're looking for a basic structure of the basic, if you would call it, building blocks of life, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, things of that nature. There's also some mineral compounds they're looking for that are consistent with, let's say, lava flow, or consistent with a body of water, let's call it a river, that is depositing sediment in such places. When that happens, those minerals go through a change, and you can detect that. And that appears to be what Curiosity is really going after here. It's just the groundwork, if you will, the foundation. Is it possible anything ever existed there? It doesn't look like it's sophisticated enough, for example, to let's say they did come up with a microbe, an organic life form. It doesn't look like it's sophisticated enough to, let's say, examine the DNA and then beam that information back to Earth.
Okay. So basically it can tell the basis for life. Do you think in the future that we're going to be able to isolate that type of, if we find the nucleotide bases, if we find specific proteins, is that a project for future missions?
Oh, yes, very much so. Now, in my opinion, I think robotics can only take us so far. Once you start coming up with evidence like that, you need to send in a human team. You just can't do it with robots. The work is just too intricate.
Sure. And so I know that they have found pockets of methane on Mars as well, and we were talking about this earlier. Why don't we explain to the audience exactly what the rover is looking for and perhaps the identification of the methane and where it's coming from, if that's possible for the future?
Yeah, there's actually in the scientific community, there's a big debate on that. The Mars orbiter actually took, I think it was infrared images of the Martian atmosphere and came up with this really huge plume of methane. And now I said that, I'm not sure how dense, of course, the plume was, because it's just infrared feed, but it did cover a pretty good area. So the debate up to this point is, did anything biological cause that, or was it some kind of geological force that caused that? Because it could very well be. Methane is associated with geological activity also. Or, hey, could it be a combination of both? The jury's out. That's why we're there.
Absolutely. And I think it's amazing that we have this project, and I assume that at one point we're going to have to send a mission out there if we really want to identify other types of life. And that was a question I had. Is it possible that we could overlook other types of life because they're not identifiable by what we assumed that they would be?
Well, sure, that's always a possibility. We have our biases, and when we take our biases with us, and notice what the scientific community says, life as we know it. As we know it. What about, life as we don't know it? It's going to be very, very hard to, you might say, think outside the box and recognize that life form when and if it presents itself. Or we stumble over it. We might kick it out of the way just thinking it's a rock.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you wanted to give a little bit more detail on the rover itself?
Sure. We got a couple of more packages here we can talk about. Where was I? We can talk about KimCam. Everybody's probably very knowledgeable about this one. That's the one that has the laser mounted on it. And you get that Buck Rogers type look in some of the animations where it's firing a laser and it's melting a rock. And it's doing that so it can take off just the few thin layers. They call it vaporize. It's not a continuous beam either. This particular laser is a pulse laser. And it takes material off rocks and just a few layers. It has a range of 7 meters, that's roughly 23 feet. With a capability like that, you can actually examine rock formations or soil without the curiosity actually rolling up too close to it. It's going to be able to identify the atomic structure. It has a spectrometer mounted with it. It also has a telescope so that while it's doing this, it can take a very close-up picture on just what's visually happening as this laser hits that. And so I imagine they're going to use that when they get up to Mount Sharp and take a look at that, those geological formations there. Because some of them, I seriously had a curiosity to be able to get right up on, so they can use this as a remote detector analyzer. That is KimCam.
Wow.
And let me just turn the page here a second. Okay. This is DAN for short, dynamic albedo neutrons. This is a contribution from Russia. believe it's their Russian Science Academy said this across the water to us to mount on curiosity. It's there to detect subsurface hydrogen. It has a pretty good range of about, I think they said 2 meters, roughly 6 feet. If you detect hydrogen down there, hey, could have some oxygen laced in there with it. If that's the case, you got water. So they're really excited about that. Geologists and biologists are excited about that. Actually, I've heard there were some glaciologists chiming in on that one. So
Sure.
The scientific community is revved up.
I'm sure. And do the geologists think that there are certain things that we're going to find in the strata as far as the developmental process of Mars and perhaps the ecological history, if there ever was one?
Sure. Just think about the geological layers on the planet Earth. You can examine them, and you can go back 100,000 years if you want. You can go back 160 million years if you want. It's all there. Call that a geological record. And what I saw from Mount Sharp looked extremely similar to the same type of formations we have here on Earth. So there's a very good chance that when they get up there and they example that, they will be able to go back in time of the geological history of Mars itself.
And another question that I have for you, we were talking earlier about the core, what they're theorizing that the core could possibly be made of.
Again, a real hypothesis and a debate going on there. They have detected a very weak magnetic field around Mars, much, much weaker than ours. That's why it's getting bathed in a pretty good intense shower of radiation. Here, and again, hypothesis out there, we think that the Earth's core is made of a molten iron that is rotating, and that is what's generating the very intense magnetic field that we have here at Earth. Now, this is a good thing because we have ourselves an International Space Station, and those folks up there are protected by the Earth's magnetic field from radiation that the sun puts off. Mars, however, isn't that lucky. It's got a very weak electric field, and unfortunately, it doesn't offer the same protection that our magnetic field offers here. So Mars's core, again, anybody's guess. It's still an ongoing debate.
Sure. And what was the other package that you were talking about as far as the rover goes?
Yeah, this is about the eighth package on the list. It's called APIS, and it is a combination of an alpha particle X-ray spectrometer, and it determines the relative abundances of different elements of rocks and soils. You might say, you want to take a rock, you want to break it down into its individual elements. This here is the instrument that's going to do that for us. This is also mounted on, wait a minute, let me check that. With that, I believe that is mounted on the robotic arm and actually sits there and does a self-measurement itself to send back data to JPL. Next up on this list, it's called RAD. That's the Radiation Assessment Detector. Now, this here device is primarily there to measure the intensity of radiation as it relates to future human expeditions to Mars. So that can affect anything from what kind of spacesuit you're going to have, what type of vehicle enclosure you're going to have, how long these things will hold up, depending on the level of radiation. For example, the radiation field around the planet Jupiter is extremely intense. And if you were just in, let's say, spacesuit, like you see the astronauts using outside the International Space Station, if they're in that particular type of spacesuit, they couldn't stay out in Jupiter space no more than 20 minutes. And if you wait another 25 minutes, your electronics will go dead without protection.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, really something we need to know before we send humans out there. Here's one. RIMS is the next package up. Again, actually, I wrote on this, man. This was going to be my entire presentation. You believe it? Okay. The RIMS stands for Rover Environmental Monitoring Station, and that's just a long way of saying it's a weather station. It's going to monitor weather parameters, the same weather parameters we monitor here on Earth. You're going to have wind speed. You're going to have humidity. You're going to have temperature. They broke temperature actually into two different sensors because they wanted air temperature and ground temperature. And they're going to measure also ultraviolet radiation. And we measure all that here. If you go out to the Weather Channel website, you look up there, and there goes the UV index. Of course, all Egypt's low, medium, and high. I would imagine that the Curiosity will give up more detailed information in that area. So that's it. Wow, that was the last one.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions?
I have a question about the UV levels as far as that goes, because I know the atmosphere on Mars is not equal to the atmosphere here, obviously, but what is the likelihood of toxic levels of radiation for humans in their exploration of Mars? I mean, I know we know it's not. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I just know that it's not the levels of other places, but what are they assuming now that it is, and what's the likelihood of it being toxic?
Unfortunately, those chances are very good. Mars's atmosphere is less than 1% as far as pressure as ours. So you're going to really get some UV content going on there, even though Mars is actually further away from the sun than we are. And if you look for UV content here on this planet, a lot of it's associated with people going to the beach. They want to get that perfect tan. Well, you consult that UV index, let you know how much sunscreen you want to use that day, because different levels, or I should say maybe different spectrums, and there's three, I think, with ultraviolet light. There's ultraviolet UVA, UVB, and UVC. I think we're kind of familiar with those. The one you want for the tan, I believe, is UVB. And the others, they'll either burn you, and one of them can give you skin cancer if they're out there long enough. So that's our concerns right here on this planet. So you go to an alien world where you do not have at least the protection we have just to walk around outside without sunscreen on. But notice if you lay on the beach, you need it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I know, studying biology, I know about UV waves and long waves and short waves and how it can damage the DNA. So that's why I was asking, because even if they're wearing suits that are protective, is there a limit to the potential of protection? Because I know that intense amounts of exposure, you can have some leaching through and some unintended DNA damage, which could ultimately become cancerous. So
that's a possibility. I remember stories from astronauts on, let's say, the Apollo mission. They talked about it on Gemini also, and in the space shuttle. But when they sleep, they get these sparks in their eyes, or these streaks, and they came to find out that those was actually cosmic rays shooting through, hitting various parts of their optic nerve. And the optic nerve responded to it by showing them these spots, if you will. So there's that concern, because there's a greater degree probably of cosmic rays on the surface of Mars. And one thing I'm actually concerned about is where they're looking for microbial life, past or present. Okay, this radiation goes down maybe I'd say 2 meters. There's a little bit of conjecture over that. You know how some people say, it's only 1 meter. Other people, it's 3. But the fact of the matter is, this radiation tends to want to sterilize. In fact, we use the same principle here when we send our meats through ultraviolets to get rid of extra bacteria that we don't want to turn up at the dinner table. So my basic, I'm kind of scared that, we're not going to find anything unless we get deeper than 6 meters. I'm sorry, deeper than 2 meters. So I hope that's not the case. And that still won't stop us from looking back into Mars's history, looking at its geological strata, and seeing if water ever was there in abundance. That's separate. But I was hoping we could go deeper, but you got to crawl before you walk.
Well, and I'm hoping in the future we can find some form of extraterrestrial life. And I know that one of the great things that we'll face is a debate about the origin of that life, whether it was terrestrial and accidentally went with the rover, or whether it actually is extraterrestrial.
Yeah, that's true. That's going to be a big debate. If you want to see how that happens, because it's very, very hard to inject a instrument into an environment that's never been there before. I would imagine that a lot of people could argue today, for all the probes that are already there has to have been some microbe that hitched a ride and is now laying somewhere on Mars ready to be discovered. And we discovered, that's from here. There you go. If you want to get into what we're doing today, the Russians are down at Antarctica at Lake Vostok. It was about under 1,500 meters of glacial ice. They've tunneled down to it. They say they're ready to break through. This is a very good example of introducing a probe or an instrument into an environment that hasn't seen the light of day or even experienced atmosphere or surface atmosphere for about 150,000 years. So it'll be very interesting. Watch and see what they do. See how if they can pull it off. They can make a mistake and bring something along with them.
Now, would there be biological repercussions if we accidentally did seed life on Mars? I mean, as far as we know that things evolve and evolution happens, so per se that an organism from here does happen to seed itself there, what are the implications then for the future of Mars?
Well, because of the intense radiation levels on the surface of Mars, and that will be bared out in a bit, I'm sure, by curiosity, you can have microbes surviving on the surface. The radiation's just too extreme for that.
Okay. So basically, we're in no danger of actually, creating another planet that evolved similarly to us because we've seeded it, right?
No. We jump. Of course, we can always jump into the realm of science fiction and talk about terraforming and bringing Mars back. But if we don't want to, if we want to stay, that's right. Yeah, we probably want to stay away from any kind of fiction these days because you just take it too far. But no, I don't think we're going to actually, let's say, somehow compromise a biological environment on Mars. If there is life on Mars, it's probably deep underground where the radiation can't get to it. And there's a possibility. We found microbes right here on this planet that are deep underground, never seen the light of day. They use a different type of chemical process to generate energy. So I
know you work
possible.
in the. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's a possibility of deep underground life.
So I know you work a lot with the scientific community. What are they thinking, speaking of extremophiles, about the arsenic-based life that was found, I think, a little over a year ago?
Yeah, and that's a little bit different, too, because I'm not have any in-depth information on those particular life forms, and I don't know how they would react to an extreme ultraviolet or gamma rays or cosmic rays, if you would, which is a little bit more extreme on Mars than they are here. They seem to do all right here, though, in an environment where we say you just can't have life forms, and they seem to be chugging right along, no matter what we say. So again, life as we don't know. Those particular life forms was a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the scientific community being shocked and shaken by that whole aspect. So that's why I thought I would bring that one up.
Well, yeah, that's why they call it science. We don't know. We're out there to learn. Sometimes we're wrong. Hey, I don't know. God, centuries ago, we believed that the Earth is at the center of everything, and the sun is revolving around us or orbiting us. And if you look up today, you see the sun pass by, and visually it looks that way. And at the time, they were calling that, I think, the geocentric theory. Well, a lot of people got together and proved that wrong. So science corrected itself and moved on. That's what we do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes me the most proud about science is that we're willing to correct ourselves. And this is a debate that I have with a lot of theists who say, well, science has been wrong, it's had to throw out theories. And I say, well, that's because we're always double-checking ourselves and testing and, furthering our data. And I'm very proud of that because I wouldn't want some stagnant form of science being practiced and us continuing in ignorance instead of growing as a species.
Sure. The way science operates, if science didn't operate the way it did, we couldn't move forward. We stagnate into some kind of abyss. It's kind of scary. I'm glad we don't do that.
Yeah.
Some people might want us to, but we just keep on trucking on.
Yes, we do. Yes, and I think that's great because if we were like religion and didn't change and upgrade, and for them it's been 2,000 years, I think that by now we would see a lot more human suffrage and problems, and we definitely wouldn't have rovers on Mars or satellites or cell phones. So I'm very proud of science.
Oh, sure. We wouldn't have any of the amenities that humans today take for granted. In fact, some humans on this planet simply don't have those amenities yet. Over in Asia, you have a pretty good population of people that do not have electric power. That's all through Africa also. So we have a ways to go on the engineering standpoint and getting up some infrastructure in some of these countries that really need it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that one of the things that we need to do is really subvert religion's influence in politics and everything, and we're going to be talking about that here soon. But so that we can, as a species, move forward and help in places like Africa, improve the quality of life as well as the quantity.
Yeah, and when we go there, I see communities, religious communities all the time trying to raise money so they can send a delegation to Africa. If you want to go there and put some infrastructure in for those people, you want to provide them some water, you want to provide them some sewage capability, that is a lofty goal, and I applaud them for that. But, hey, leave your Bibles at the house, okay? You can't be reading the Bible and putting in a pipe at the same time. Come on.
That's right. And dogma shouldn't dictate how people live their lives and how they function in society. I think that dogma belongs in a personal place, and that if you want to keep it at home, fine. In your church, fine. But when it causes death and violence and destruction, then you have to reassess the value of the dogma.
Sure, and you have to understand, people get kind of miffed when you go into their house and start telling them everything they're doing is wrong and you're right and this is the way you got to do it. I throw somebody out. In fact, I don't even let them in. I see them coming, close the shades, turn the stereo down, turn off the TV. Nobody's home.
Yeah, I think that's kind of silly that we actually have religious people who go home to home trying to indoctrinate other people. I think that's a little bit absurd that you're going to show up and try to convince a person in their own home.
Well, for every person, that represents a couple of dollars for someone. And so you got to keep that population up, or whether they use the term, the congregation. It sounds better, don't it? You need a large congregation. God loves you and he needs your money. And money
seems
that love.
to be...
Don't forget the money.
Yeah, absolutely. And money seems to be the absolute driving goal of religion. I think that a lot of religions have been designed to help, control people, control the populace by giving them that slave mentality and telling them that they should be slaves and be good to their masters, and the masters are the ones ruling with the religion. So.
Yeah, it's sometimes I was looking at a story, I think it goes back to the 15th century. A monk called Martin Luther, he actually started, I think they call it the Protestant Reformation. And he found out, because, this guy was a devout Catholic. He was into it. He joined one of the most strictest orders in Catholicism. So he goes to Rome, he visits the Vatican, and come to find out, in Catholicism, there's these 16 things you absolutely have to do to get into heaven. Along the lines of those 16 things you have to do, the Vatican figured out they could charge for it. So if you had the money, you could just basically give them a fee, and they'd mark off one of these 16 things you had to do. So if you just kept on, you'd end up, theoretically, paying your way to heaven.
Oh, my goodness.
Really, yeah, it's funny, man. You talk about getting in on the ground floor of a con. Wow. I couldn't have dreamed that up in a million years. I'm not that low. Got these poor people out there throwing their money at them so they can get one of these deals checked off so they get just one step closer to heaven.
Yeah, and do you know that actually in ancient Egypt, that's how they did the Book of the Dead. Initially, it was written for rich people, but when they figured that they could make a lot of money off of it, they started making it for the populace in general. So if you wanted to get into heaven, you needed your guidebook, which was the Book of the Dead.
Sure, so it's like that through all types of religion, some extreme types of religion. Even in this country, I think we had an Islamic movement here with the African American population. To join that, you had to give up all your worldly goods. That would include the deed to your house, your bank account, and listen, don't forget that car. Come on now, going to heaven ain't easy. You can walk to work. So, and don't forget to turn over that paycheck, and we'll tell you what to wear and what to eat. And, if that don't make you happy, I don't know what will. Fact,
absolutely.
I'm itching to join right now.
All you have to do is be a slave.
But that's pretty much human history and religion, and it's kind of funny because or not funny, I should say, is when you do look at human history and then relate what happened with religion, you get a lot of warfare that's in the name of religion.
Yeah, absolutely.
For some reason, Christians and Muslims have a real passion for the city of Jerusalem. And they tore each other up trying to claim it.
Oh, yeah, and actually, that's actually one of our topics today was religion and politics. If you want to continue with us, be more than glad to keep you around. I know that we wanted to talk about the different dogmas of the vice president and the presidential hopeful and his vice president hopeful-elect. And I know that Romney is a Mormon, and we were actually looking over his religious views as well. And one of the things that I found was interesting when I was reading up on Romney's religious ideology was that not only do they have their magic underwear, which I find fascinating.
I know, I smile
male.
every time. I can't even read that without cracking a smile. I think of
Me either.
Religious undergarments is, I think, the term they use.
Yeah, and it's amazing that he's a grown adult male, and yet I've been told you can literally see them under his suit, that he believes full-heartedly that these underwear have these magic powers. And to me, it's astounding that people would want to elect a man so driven by religion that his undergarments have to reflect that.
Well, I notice he's not putting himself in position to prove any of that using his own body. So maybe there's a little reason in there somewhere after all. One way he could prove it is simply take a walk across an interstate one day, a busy one, and let's see if he can get across.
Yeah.
You know, if he got across that, I'd buy that underwear.
There you go.
Let's get some evidence.
Yeah, really.
Right. Well, Ed, I was going to say, Ed, we've got another caller that's actually been on hold for about an hour, which may actually have a question for you too. So, I would like to put you on hold and maybe answer another call and continue the topic that we're on now, and perhaps this caller will want you to come back on. So just hang tight for us, okay?
Sure will.
All right, Ed. All right, Rachel, before we bring the next caller on, do you want to do a little build-up to what we were going to talk about?
Yeah, I was just saying that along with Romney's magical underwear, I know that were we going to go on to the presidential religious ideologies, or did we want to take the question for Ed?
Well, I'm not even sure if it is a question for Ed. We've just got a couple of callers that have been on hold for the entire time with their little exclamation points. So.
Okay. Well, why don't we talk to the callers and see what their questions are, and we can go from there.
All right. Welcome to the Pink Atheist.
Oh, my gosh.
Hello?
I was not totally... Okay, hold on. Sorry about that. I was not expecting to be thrown on the air like that. Okay. Jimmy, you can't do that to me, man. You've known me for too long. It's Carlos.
Okay. I know who this is now. Hello, callers. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Actually, I was particularly listening to Ed really closely because, I study physics at Florida International University. And I'm a big giant space nut. I even have a shrine full of Legos, the space Legos and everything else. So I do whatever I can to find out more and more every single day. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on what Ed was talking about, and maybe even ask him a question.
Well, we can bring him back on the line if you'd like. Would you like us to bring him back on so we can all talk?
Yeah, that's not a problem. I guess it'd be great because him and I would probably have a good idea of what we can throw out there as far as something I may not have covered. So.
All right. Well, Ed is back on the line now, so.
All right. Hey, Ed, you there?
I am here.
Hey, Ed, how you doing? My name is Carlos. How are you?
How are you doing? Appreciate you calling in.
Doing great. I've been patient. I love to not just talk, but also talk about important things such as the Mars rover and things of that nature. One of the things I wanted to touch on that you briefly, touched on was the whole terraforming idea, and you happen to throw out the venture into the world of science fiction. And my question is to you. If you don't mind me asking, what is your title? What is it you do directly?
You dropped out on just that last little piece there after science fiction. Could you please repeat that?
I said, what is it that you do? What is it that you do exactly? What is your title? If you don't mind me asking.
What do I work at? What do I do for a living?
That's what he's asking. He's asking what your title is and what exactly you do for a living.
Okay, I'm an electronics technician at this point in time. To pay the bills, I service high-definition television. I've been doing that for about 20 years now, a little more.
All right. Well, this is honestly a question for you and a question for even Jimmy and whoever else might be listening or even hosting. To think that at any given point that we talk about science fiction, let's be honest, throughout history, everything at one point was science fiction. Space flight, just regular human flight, the idea of microbial organisms, just everything at one point was science fiction. So what I wanted to touch on really was the idea of that terraforming, although we are far beyond anything right now to even think that that's even remotely possible. To completely dismiss the idea, in my opinion, is something that we should always kind of just keep in mind that, anything's possible.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So don't ever like to dismiss things because you say the world of science fiction. I'm not scolding you whatsoever. What I want to bring out there is that, everything at one point was in fact science fiction. I mean, hell, we have all these movies and books. I mean, starting off with a really good idea of, H.G. Wells' The World of Worlds. Things like that is currently science fiction. Now, the idea that maybe one day something along those lines, hopefully not, at least not catastrophically, happens, then it's no longer science fiction, and now it's become actual reality. And that's the wonderful thing about science is I see that the advancement has allowed us, through booms only, though. It only happens in booms. It doesn't really happen at a slow pace. To where science fiction becomes reality. And I think that, in my opinion, as long as we keep our heads looking at that science fiction as a possibility, not dismissing it, don't you think, you yourself, you're probably a lot older than I am, you've seen science fiction become reality, yes?
Oh, sure. I was a little bit glib before about terraforming Mars, and that's a monumental feat. We simply don't know enough. There are too many variables involved. You have to know something about climatology. You have to know something about geology. You have to know something about planetary physics, and we're working at that, and we're learning more every day. But we're not even close to controlling in any kind of environment on any planet. Notice we're not doing such a great job right here on Earth. As far as
all the more reason why
science fiction is concerned, we turn science fiction into science fact all the time. For example, the late Neil Armstrong in 1969, by putting his foot on another celestial object, turned spaceflight from science fiction into science fact. Even the way that the rover Curiosity was landed on the planet using a sky crane, essentially. Before that had never been done before. And when it did that and did it successfully, again, science fiction turns to science fact. So, but we wait for the facts. We're not going to start speculating about science fiction, and that's, I think, really what I meant about that, is we have to get there first.
No, of course.
If I can jump in here real quick, guys. Carlos?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, as far as terraforming and as far as right now what we're looking at, I do understand what he was explaining, because when it comes to life, you have to have certain environmental factors. Now, Mars is probably lacking some of those on the surface. So what he was saying and explaining is that we're looking below the surface where there's potential for difference in environmental factors. We can always hope that science fiction turns into science fact, but in order for an organism from here to survive, it would have to be an extremophile or an event in the environment which made it more likely for it to survive. So I understand that. And I'm the last one to say anything is impossible, trust me, because I very much believe in science and our capacity as humans to invent and be curious beings and achieve new heights. So I'm not going to say anything is impossible, but at this point in time and with the constraints with cellular organisms and their structure, the potential probably is not there on the surface, like you said, but we can always hope that there's that one little pocket or that one little event that took place, that there was life there, and we can prove that. That would be astounding.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I hope to the day. I mean, one of the biggest things we have problem here is, natural resources. Natural resources are dwindling before our eyes. And in my opinion, I mean, if it's not going to be the moon, for whatever reasons, we need to start looking elsewhere for home, because realistically, we've totally damaged this planet, and if we can't do the reverse effect to it, we need to start finding someplace else. And in my opinion, it's going to be extremely difficult. It's going to be a very long, hard, and expensive ride to start doing things like that. But one of the things that that people don't even realize is that the moon, although it may look barren, it's actually not quite barren at all. And we have a lot of business to do there first, and maybe with going back to the moon and mining helium-3, which is what we really need right about now, maybe we can maybe that's the first stepping stone to Mars. And
sure.
if you know, do you mean, are you aware of the concept of what I'm talking about as far as helium-3?
What was that?
I am, yeah. I've heard theories on that.
Okay, well, right now,
somebody else want to take
I think it was March of this year, in Los Alamos, Texas, they successfully made a non-destructive 100 Tesla magnetic field, something that we've been working on for well over 50 years in order to sustain nuclear fusion reactors, which we have not been able to do because of course, technology and, the science isn't right. And now that we actually have been able to get at least 100 Tesla, we can actually start perfecting it and even now start creating fusion power plants. If we can start doing that now and get the helium-3 from the moon where we've been neglecting for so many decades, then we won't have to really worry too much right now about taking a new place or even colonizing right away. But I feel that the moon would be in itself be a stepping stone. And that's what I do. I don't care if I'm at McDonald's, I'm at Kmart, I'm at Walmart. I don't care if I'm sitting there in a drive-thru. I'm always advocating, space travel and everything else. So, where do you guys see, personally, from personal experience, from your education, where do you see us returning back to the moon, if at all?
Well, I've actually heard some people say, and of course I have nothing behind this to put up as fact, but that the talk of space travel was the moon was actually going to be more of a kickoff or a gas station, if you will, on the way that we were going to plan for further explorations out, which was my understanding, and it had something to do with the way the moon around the Earth and its traveling further away from the sun and being behind us would actually make it very cold. And then the times that it's towards the sun would make it extremely hot. So that it's almost like in Mars. Mars has the two extremes: very cold at night and very, very hot during the day. We're going to experience that everywhere, but that's what I've heard. So.
Well, my biggest concern right now, and we look at Venus and we look at Mars as two entirely different planets, and it's actually what we're doing to both of our. We're doing the end result to Mars and Venus as we're doing to Earth. Venus has a thick, lovely, and I think I say lovely hesitantly, thick sulfuric acid atmosphere, which we all know if you guys pay attention to the missions that have been sent there. We don't last as long as our rovers and anything else that matters. I think the longest one was a Russian one, lasted for a couple of hours, maybe not even over 2, and it ended up scanning the lens cap by total accident, and then it died. The reason for that being is based on what we know how, chemicals in the atmosphere work and, of course, extreme temperatures from the sun being that close and whatnot, that is in itself called the greenhouse gases entering the atmosphere, staying within the atmosphere, and not allowing the heat of the sun through the UV rays to essentially, not escape. So we're doing that to Earth. And if you look at Mars doesn't have an ozone layer, which is, again, something else that we're also doing to our planet. So it seems like we have a lot more business out there than just, a gas station. And more importantly, we really can't do much if we're out of power, we're out of resources. So, we need to look up, and I tell everybody, if I tell you something and you can pass it on to the next person and you made them that much more aware of the situation, then, do it, because we're running out of time, in my opinion. People think that there's this is actually the thing I love the most. I live down here in Miami, Florida, for those who don't know. Every single time I advocate science and space missions, the exact same response usually comes about. We have problems down here that we need to fix first. And in reality, by venturing out into space and finding out more about these other planets and even getting the technology to look at these other planets, other technology will will transform itself, or even older technology will come back and maybe even work its magic into creating some kind of new tool for us to use to better our world.
Carlos?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here because I want to just talk to you. So here's the thing, about our planet. It existed well before us, and I truly believe it will exist long after us if we keep going this direction. The planet is not so much in danger as we are. We are the ones expending the resources. And just like one of the things I learned about evolution is at one point in time when cyanobacteria, were existing solely on the planet, oxygen was toxic to the environment, and then terrestrial life began to grow and use oxygen. But at first that was toxic. So you have to understand, this planet has existed before us. It existed before the environment was right for us to be here, and the potential existed for us. And somebody said it on chat, and I'm just reverberating it. This planet will go on without us. It just won't have the same atmosphere, the same terrestrial life, the same organisms. If we destroy this planet, it will probably evolve somewhere else. I mean, there's organisms that could live through pretty much anything. They can take high levels of radiation, not as high, obviously, as Mars has, but higher than we're used to. So I think that we're the ones in the dire situation because we don't pay attention to what we do with our resources. However, that we're not at a critical mass point. I know CO2 levels are rising. I know that the glaciers are melting, and we are facing global warming based on a few things: volcanic action, gases that are being released from the planet, things that we're doing. But we're not at critical mass at this point. And trust me, if we ever reach the CO2 levels that used to exist on the Earth, humans won't be able to survive that. It's not possible. So it's not that we need to so direly find another planet. We need to utilize our resources the right way and work with our planet, because it doesn't matter what else we struggle to do. If we can't exist here, the likelihood for us to exist anywhere else in the universe is even less, because we evolved specifically to this environment. People get this, they have this mindset that this environment is perfect for us because of some being or because of some situation. No, every principle, every part of your body down to the cellular level has adapted to this planet specifically.
Oh, no, and I agree. And let me be straightforward. I mean, you have not, to be honest with you, told me anything I really don't know. And the idea is that we obviously, even if we have 100 years on the planet, it will take well beyond that for our body to evolve as it should have over a longer period of time. And unfortunately, since evolution takes hundreds of millions of years, billions of years to evolve and change and adapt to our environment, hence the word adapting, you have a pre-existing situation, and we became what we are based on that situation. But you're right. The planet will go on. The planet will go on. The universe will go on. Our existence is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But it is our existence that makes us want to do bigger and better things. And although, yes, we have bacteria that exist elsewhere, 400 billion stars alone in the Milky Way galaxy, probably like 1/5 or 1/6 has terrestrial. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. But my problem is us. I mean, my concern, obviously, the planet's going to go on itself. It'll hit its reboot button like it does every single time. Okay, that's one thing about Earth, that it's really well oiled. If it wipes out whatever's doing damage to it, it does, and then it moves on to the next phase of its life. But I personally, as a father, I want to be able to have a planet left over for my son. And I want him to enjoy the nice clean air and not have to walk around with a mask.
Sure.
So with that being said, yes, I reiterate your point that we need to spend our resources wisely and stop squandering them and everything else. We may be out of time for that. And we can't sit there and wait till the last seconds where we can't breathe any longer to say, okay, guys, let's get our asses in here. Excuse my French. We have to start looking at the opportunities out there.
Let me see if I get you correctly, Carlos. So what I think you're trying to say is that we are damaging the Earth much faster than we can repair it, and that we need to do something to look to the future. Yes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And because we don't know how much time we have left.
I'm in agreement with that.
we should be looking for both options. We should be looking for an improvement of our own, or at least to sustain life for just a little bit longer. Okay, and based on numbers I've seen, we're looking not even 100 years. We're looking like we can't even breathe on this planet past year 2080. But that for me, obviously, for people like you and I and everybody else, we're older now. We probably won't even live that long. But for our kids and our kids' kids, I mean, this is a beautiful planet. I would think that they want to experience the same thing we experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I would encourage you that if you would do this, please. Go and find the Pink Atheist fan page and like it, and share the information that you have that you're using to do this. Just because everyone that's listening to this conversation really needs to see both sides of the argument. So if you do,
of course.
Yeah, and I'd love to continue this discussion on there as well, because we should be talking about it. And us as atheists, knowing the value of life in our planet and the resources that we have, we should be advocating caretaking this planet for the future, and instead of going with the dogmatic stance of it'll be here because some great deity will float down and save us all.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And unfortunately, you know what? There's 5% of us. I mean, globally, if you want to look at a global number, we need to start, knocking some sense or finding a way to relate to theists, like atheists, or even agnostics. Or even just secular, theists themselves have been able to understand and take a stance on it as far as science and how it's a huge thing for us, and how, I guess the best words I can use are from Carl Sagan, a lesson in humility at every turn.
Yeah.
So, I think if we can just knock some sense, it'd be good.
Yeah. Callers, if you would, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing as we did for Ed. If you'll stay on the line and listen to the rest of the show, we're going to answer a few more calls, and perhaps one of them may want to talk to you, and we'll possibly bring you back on. I'll try to give you a little heads up this time. How about that?
Thanks. No problem. Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Carlos.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We've got a few more. Let's take another caller.
Sure.
Welcome to the Pink Atheist.
Hey.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Hi.
This is Mark.
Hey, Mark and Stephanie. Hello. I kind of realized that after you said the second part of that. How are y'all doing this evening?
Wonderful. We just got done with a swim and been listening to the talk on global climate change and the things that are stopping us from fixing these problems that we're facing right now as a species. And I agree with everything that's been said. I feel like religion has really gotten in the way of fixing global warming. Obviously, the Conservative Party is very adamant against denying all scientific evidence regarding it. However, I don't think that they actually believe what they say. What I would say that the problem is that fixing global warming, space exploration, thinking about our future as a species isn't profitable. And it's a shame, but until we get the profit motive out of science and out of politics, before even the religious motives, we're not going to have any substantial change. Until people stop worrying about NASA making a profit in the next 50 years, NASA's never going to get any funding. As of right now, their funding is equal to a small percentage of all of the money spent on the foreign wars. But the difference is those wars make us money. And space exploration and particle physics, it just doesn't, And until we fix the profit motive, we're not going to fix the lack of science.
Actually, I would like to counter you on that. I would say that the motive is not there to make a different kind of profit. It's more profitable to cut down a forest and plant, fruits and vegetables that can easily be sold at market. Now, if we could see the potential profit in planting the trees and reseeding the environment and helping those goals, then everything could change. The problem is, really, if you look at it, and I have, is dogma, because a lot of the Christians that you talk to, a lot of the fundamentalists that you talk to, they are so obsessed with the fact that this planet was created for them by, their floaty sky god, and so they really absolutely believe that, the destruction of this planet is actually their ticket into heaven, and that it doesn't matter what they do to this planet because their deity gave it to them, and so therefore it's a fail-safe. If the world blows up tomorrow, obviously that was their savior's return method. That's what we were supposed to do. And they rely on these doctrines, which are toxic, to confirm their delusion. And if we saw the profit in taking care of our world, it would be a different place. But just like Romney and them, they rely on their dogma to make their rules in their politics. They rely on their dogma for everything in their life, and it's very toxic. And it's hard to convince a person who believes that death for them is only an entrance into a happy, happy place, that this world is the happy place, and this is the best it's going to get, and that we should be taking care of it.
The common person thinks that. The conservative voters and the conservative states will tell you that. But, I promise you that any of the very educated politicians in the Conservative Party, like Paul Ryan, who will fight tooth and nail on whether climate change is happening, they just don't care. They know that it's going on, but it stops their profit motive. They won't get as much money. And Karl Marx said that religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature. It's the opiate of the people, of the masses. And the Conservative Party pushes religion as a placating effect, I guess, as something to distract them from the real problems. People like Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, who are very educated, they went to college, they took biology and all of the essential sciences, they can't tell me that it's not happening. My teachers in geology, I'm a geology major right now, they will tell me it's happening, but then they'll tell me that it's not our fault. And they'll agree that the reason they're saying it is because they're funded by oil companies. And I disagree that religion is going to be the thing that stops us from space exploration. It's really the capitalists pushing religion on the poor and on the uneducated to pursue their own motives, to pursue the motives of the capitalists.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with that 110%. And it's for those of us who notice it, it's quite obvious. Religion is an easy manipulation to people because they truly believe that if they be a good person and a quiet slave, then of course they're going to be repaid in heaven with this gloriousness. What they don't realize is, no, you've just given your life away to slavery and devalued it completely, and you never got any joy out of it because of that. Religion, that's why I am such an enemy of religion, is because it has such potent toxic effects on human beings. And look at what it does. It flies planes into buildings. It covers up pedophilia and child rape by the thousands. And you think about that, that needs to be eliminated. But yeah, it keeps people in this capitalist idea and this idea of slavery. Well, everyone wants to make it to the top, but we know only 1% is up there, and they're not letting the rest of you rise to the top with them. They want to keep you oppressed. They want to keep you stupid. They want to keep you fighting their wars because it's what benefits them. And as long as they never have to do that, then they're completely content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm an atheist and an anti-theist at that. And, I will continue to say that religion is one of the worst things to ever be invented by man. But unfortunately, I think that is just one of the many distractions that we're handed and that we're fed by the ruling class in order to turn a blind eye to what they're doing to our planet and to our society.
Yeah. I agree.
I tell you what, Mark, given the fact that this is the first time you call in, and I understand Stephanie's on the phone as well, for those that don't know, I know that both of y'all are in the mobile atheist community as well. If y'all would just take a minute and say who you are and give a brief description, and we'll go from there, because y'all are probably going to be regular callers.
All right, Stephanie can go first.
Hey, I'm Stephanie, native of Mobile, Alabama, a feminist, humanist first feminist because we are in the struggle and in the oppression, an environmentalist because this is the only earth that we have to live on. There is no afterlife, which explains why I'm an atheist. So we have to take care of this earth and the resources, and we need to spread awareness. I think that's my big activism motivation, is spreading awareness to people who are working classmen, which is the majority of the race. And if we could only get together and work towards the same goal, which is surviving as a species, I think we'd all be on the same page.
Absolutely.
And again, I'm Mark. I was born in Mobile, Alabama, lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for about 3 or 4 years. During that time, I became a liberal and an atheist. And since I've been back in Mobile, I've become active in the Mobile atheist community. Stephanie and I both are on the board, and I've also become very active in liberal politics, most notably Marxist and Trotsky socialism, and that's where I am now. I hope to be a geologist in the near future.
Wow, wonderful. Wonderful.
Great. Well, Mark, I was going to say we have several other people on hold. I think we're going to run through a few of them real quick, and I want both of y'all to stay on the line, though, because we're going to come back to y'all, I do believe.
Absolutely. Good talking.
Yeah, good talking to you, Mark. Wonderful that you called in.
All right, let's see who we got next.
Okay.
Welcome to Mobile Atheist. I'm sorry, I'm going Mobile Atheist now because I've been talking about it. Welcome to the Pink Atheist. How about that? Will that work better?
Yeah, that works just a little better. Hi, Rhett. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Did you have a question for us, or would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I'll be happy to introduce myself. My name is Rhett Ellens. I am the Minister of the Community Fellowship with Mobile, and am friends with Mark and Stephanie and Jimmy and, pretty much everybody in the Mobile Atheist community. And we're an organization, I don't know how much y'all would know about UU, but it's a very broad, open type organization, and we.
Did we lose him?
I think we're losing him.
Oh, no. Oh. Well, Rhett, we can't hear you, so I'm not sure where you are.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and take another caller then.
Sure, sure.
Welcome
Hello?
to the Pink Atheist.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. I have a question.
Okay. What would you like to ask?
Okay, well, I'm just saying, out there, I'm Christian, just saying it, I just want to know, like, why you're atheist. And that's it. I'm not going to, like, belittle anything. I just want to know why.
Well, it would be a bad place to belittle, but, Rachel, if you want to take it first, go ahead.
Sure. I'm not sure what you know about atheists, but one of the things that usually makes a person atheist is looking at the evidence and reading the Bible, looking through the theology. And I know that I've read the Bible. I know that my reason for becoming an atheist was because I actually did understand what was in the Bible. And, it's hard to conceptualize everything in the Bible as realistic, and I know some people say, well, those are stories made, to guide us, but the Bible is actually very terrible if you've read it. It's very sadistic, and it actually was part of the reason that I became an atheist, because I couldn't rationalize that there could be this deity watching over us who could let human suffrage happen as much as it does, and rape and violence and murder and all of this. And now you might say, okay, well, there's supposed to be a devil, but I don't feed into an innocent God who could create a world, create suffrage, create a counterpart that's the devil, and have power over him and still be innocent of what's going on this planet. And there's no reconciling that for me. So I'm an atheist because not only is there not evidence for any of the things in the Bible, but I'm apathetic to the idea of there being a deity who could create what we see in the planet around us.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
I guess I'll take my turn.
Is it fine
Go ahead.
to express my own opinion?
Absolutely, absolutely. You're welcome to come on and express your opinion.
Sure.
Well, I just feel that we made the world horrible. God gave us free will, yes, to sacrifice our sins, but we made the world horrible the way that it is. It wasn't His doing. That's what I believe.
Well, first of all,
it's just you're right by Satan, but yeah.
First of all, you would have to establish that we do have free will.
Yeah,
I would say that we possibly don't have free will. So that's something you would have to. I mean, if you want to actually argue the point, you would have to bring proof. I'm sorry for that, but atheists always ask for proof. I'm sorry, but we do need a little bit of it.
Well, and I want to chime in here. Okay, so you say we have free will. Free will would be I get to make my own decisions, okay? So if I have free will, then why am I not living in Trump Tower, flying a jet, and, not working for a living but just laying on the beach all day? I mean, free will means that you have the potential to do anything, make any choice. And if you look at your life, the choices that you will ever be presented are limited, and that's just rationality. We all know that there are consequences to bad behavior. So most of us with rational minds choose to not do bad behaviors. But the amount of other avenues that are afforded to us as far as choices in life are not that many. And one thing I would challenge you to do as you go through this next week, and you can feel free to call us back next week and talk with us, is look at your life and the choices that you're given every day and see how many of those are abnormal or extreme, and see how many of those are very mundane. Because in your life, you're not likely to come across a man who's going to hand you a bag of money. You're not likely to do something so absurd.
Yeah, but that's from the free will of others. I'm sorry if I interrupted, but yeah, that's
no,
from the free will
because,
of others.
Free will says that anything is possible, anything. And that's just not true. That's not even logical.
Well, even if you want to propose that it's just the free will of choice, and I'll jump out on them and tell you that, okay, I'll accept it. Maybe you're saying that it's only the free will to make a choice from a certain thing. I challenge you to show that you could have made a different outcome. I challenge you to say that if you'd have chose something different last week, if you'd have chose to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich one night instead of a ham and cheese, how that would have changed the outcome of your life. You cannot prove that we have free will is the point. There's no way that you can prove that.
Well, we can't prove that evolution or the Big Bang Theory is real either.
Actually, we're working on that. So just hang tight on that. But I wouldn't be so condescending to start.
I'm sorry, but those could be the questions of how instead of the questions of why.
Hold on. What did you say we can't prove?
We can't really prove the the theory of evolution and the theory of the Big Bang Theory.
Okay, so now I'm going to take you to task. You just walked into my home territory. Evolution is not just a theory. It's a fact and a theory. And I want to put that to you. 6,000 human fossils in the line of evolution. We have overwhelming evidence. Darwin had over 20,000 fossils and species that he brought. No. Please don't let me go, and then I'll let you go, okay? Because let me tell you something. He worked for 20 years. He consulted with doctors and scientists and geologists and every other kind of professional in order to write his book. Darwin knew exactly what he was talking about, down to muscles and ligaments. He had over 20,000 species that he identified, and they are in a museum in London. So if the theory of evolution was wrong, why is it embraced all over this world by every scientist who is out there teaching evolution?
Yes, but what I'm saying is that those could be the questions to how instead of the questions to why. I believe in evolution, but not like to the point where we came from monkeys. I just feel like we evolved.
To say we came from monkeys shows the fact that you haven't done any of the research yourself. We have a common ancestor with monkeys. At the time that we had a common ancestor with monkey, we were both the same. We didn't evolve from a monkey. In other words, the monkey did not evolve for the past 4 million years, and then we did. That's an ignorant statement. That's just an absolutely ignorant statement.
It is, and you know what? Here's the deal. It's not just monkeys. We are a form of primate. We are a form of ape. We are Homo sapiens. So you have to understand there's been more than one divergence. We diverged from the common ancestor with chimpanzees about 6 million years ago. We can trace our ancestors back to about 3 million years ago. We have the fossils that show the evolutionary line. Okay, not every fossil, and nor will we have every fossil, but you can't show that humans went from being humans to crocodiles to humans again. Okay, evolution doesn't work like that. It's not leaps and bounds. It is slow, subtle movements through time by environmental pressures. So you're never going to see that one day an ape is an ape in the forest and the next day he's a human walking out of it. That doesn't happen. They have already taken their evolutionary trail. They have already diverged. They are successful, and that's what keeps them being that species. And when that success is dwindling or when a mutation happens, that's when you will see a change. That's what we see in a lot of things, and we see evolution happening today. There have been overwhelming experiments to show evolution, including the E. coli experiment, which showed that E. coli itself mutated 3 genes. And 3 is pretty significant within a period of time of 20 years because it turned on 3 genes to be able to accept citric acid. Now, that is a feat because without the primary gene, the other secondary genes didn't function. So it had to turn on all 3 genes in the correct order in order to function to absorb citric acid. And that is a form of evolution because evolution is when you get it right, it sticks. And it's not just one organism that evolves, but whole groups of organisms. And so you're never going to see one monkey becoming a human, but you could see a potential group of monkeys becoming slowly something else. But it's going to happen over millions of years. And humans only have 300,000 years that we can really account for in our development. We are a brief moment in time versus the whole history of evolution. So how can we sit here and say we know what happened when we're the babies on the block? We haven't been around that long to see what's going on. We're just now learning how to look for the triggers of evolution and look what's changing. So when people say to me evolution is just a theory, it triggers my buttons because evolution isn't just a theory, it's a fact and a theory. And we can prove it.
Well, I can also give evidence in the Bible that God is real too. And I'm just saying
if you want to provide
I gotta hear.
I'm sorry, but hang on. And I could just say that most of the scientists that you're explaining, like Darwin or Einstein, were of the religious faith.
No, absolutely, Darwin was not.
And some
neither was Einstein.
Huh? Einstein
Darwin was an atheist.
Catholic. Darwin wasn't an atheist.
Yes, he was.
He was
really.
Catholic.
In fact, he left the church and he fought with
No,
his own
Hitler
wife
was
because,
Catholic.
Huh?
Yeah.
Hitler was the Catholic that you got to accept. You're not going to put Einstein over there.
No, I know that Hitler was Catholic. I'm not. I didn't even bring up Hitler. I'm saying that they were both of the religious faith, and yes, Einstein was Catholic.
No, Einstein was not Catholic. Einstein was born to a Jewish family. He didn't know it until he was older, and then he embraced his Jewish heritage. In fact, in Israel, there is a college named after him that holds all of his papers. You're talking about two people that I have studied diligently in my life. And as far as Darwin goes, by the time that he died, he was a complete apathetic atheist. He wanted nothing to do with religion or God of any kind, as well as Einstein, who talked about not believing in a personal creator, as in somebody invested in him. And when he talked about a creator, he was talking about science. He wasn't talking about some deity that flies in the 12th hour and saves you from something. These two men were not religious. In fact, Darwin, after his daughter died, wanted nothing to do with the church. And it took him as many years to publish his book because he didn't want to offend his wife, who was religious. But he finally did it. So no, Darwin was an atheist. He's accounted among us. He started out religious, and then after he understood the theory that he was looking at, he realized that, one, there doesn't need to be a God for all of this to have happened, and two is he didn't need a God.
Well, it's just like I was a Christian at one time. That doesn't make me a Christian now.
That's right.
Period. I mean, sure, you could find some text where he went to a church at one time or something to that effect, but that doesn't change the fact that he died an atheist.
That's right. And in fact, there was no bedside confession about believing in God. There was nothing. Darwin died, and he died an atheist. And though he was buried on religious grounds, he was what he was, as well as Einstein. Einstein embraced Judaism, but he embraced it in the form of his people culturally accepting that. He was not a religious man. He did not go to temple. He did not worship like the other people. He was a very diligent, intelligent man. And some of the verses that he wrote later on in life explain his criticism of religion and the likelihood that he was also an atheist.
But I am curious. Carry on with your Bible proof that God existed, since you seem to have that.
Well,
still there?
I'm just going to use this as a comparison. We have all these objects in our possession and all this, right? And they're all created by something. How could you not say that we weren't created by something as well? We have a bed that was obviously created by someone. I'm not saying like they were created by God. I'm just saying by someone. We have everything that was but just like made by the hands of others. You don't really think that we were created by a hand of someone?
Well, you keep saying this someone. Who created this someone in your theory?
Because right now I'm not just saying Christianity, because there's obviously other people out there with different types of beliefs, like the Muslims. And so I'm just saying someone right now.
Okay, so keep it at someone. But since you brought this up, that there's some proof, who created the someone?
Yeah.
I'm going to hold you to an answer on this. I want an answer. Who created the someone?
If something can't come from nothing, then your creator can't come from nothing to create himself to then create everything. So either something can come from nothing or nothing can, and then your creator can't exist.
Well, then how can you explain fire? Fire was never really
Fire
made
doesn't come from nothing. Don't you make fire?
Not really, no.
Really? Okay.
It's an element that just came to being. Fire was an element that just came to being. How can you not say that someone just came to being?
Okay. How many times have you sat around and fire just started, out of nowhere in your room? How many times?
He, I believe, dropped out. Yeah, we dropped him. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, interesting first theistic call. So, guys, if you're going to call in and you're a theist, bring the proof because, we're not going to take it easy on you. But good try.
All right. Well, we have a few minutes left. Let's take another caller, and we'll probably have some comments on that call. Hang on.
Sure.
Welcome to the Pink Atheist. Hello? All right, let's put that one back on hold. Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hello?
To Pink Atheist. Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hi, how are you?
Going on?
Hey, I'm fine. I'm an atheist. Have been for the past 3 years. And I had two things I wanted to touch on. I am a African American atheist.
Okay.
And first thing I wanted to touch on is it probably might sound like a weird question coming, for me, but why do you think so many African Americans, the African American community predominantly accepts Christianity after all the things that have happened to them in our history? Why are they the most reluctant to just let their shields down and just embrace the same thing that was used against them?
Yeah. I'll start off on this one. There are several verses in the Bible that actually tell slaves to obey their masters, and that their master is the one that controls them, so on and so forth. And I believe it just spun off from that. That once they were freed, they never really accepted it. And obviously you called the show and asked that question, so you're not going to take that offensively. I don't believe that there's a lot of the civilization that just absolutely said, you know what, we still got to keep as much of it as possible. I believe it is a short-term memory thing because actually the blacks were extremely prosecuted, and not just the blacks. There was a whole lot of slavery in other nationalities, but you obviously call in from that one side point, so I figured I'd go on that.
Yeah,
Rachel, you got anything to add?
I have a lot to add here, actually.
What do you got to say, Rachel?
Huh?
Yeah, you give it to me, Rachel.
Okay. So here's the deal, okay? What better idea for humans to embrace than the idea that if you suffer in this life, that in the next life you will be basically a king. You're going to have all of your needs met. You're going to live wonderfully. It's all going to be great. So this is the thing that keeps many people enslaved, but unfortunately for the African nation, they said slaves over here to be literal slaves. So you have this mentality. I think that they want to recoup their self-esteem, their feeling of unity and community with embracing religion, because everything about the black heritage was stolen when they came from Africa. So all that they had to embrace was Christianity. And if you look at a lot of the black churches, and I hope you're not offended by the way I'm saying that, you will see that they find a lot of community in that. And that's because they have no cultural heritage, nothing to rely on other than religion. And I think that brings them more community than anything else that they could embrace. So, of course, they're going to embrace it as heartily as they can, because what else can they do? I mean, they don't have anything to rely on. They can't relate to people in Africa. They can't relate to anyone else's nationality. So they have to deal with what they have. And, of course, it makes people feel good to have that kind of community to stand by. And I think that's a lot of the reason that people don't leave religion is because the religion provides some form of community, even if it is shallow and vindictive and toxic. It provides them something so that they don't feel alone. And humans, we're wired to be community individuals. We're wired to interact with each other. So religion has found its place by seeding itself in there, and by playing on human insecurity. So if you keep people insecure, you'll keep them coming back because you can promise them more security, and then of course make them more afraid. And so I think pushing the fear, So I think that's a lot of why the black community has such a problem with religion being so embedded in it.
Yeah, because people always look at me like I'm weird, like it's something like abnormal, especially to see what atheists in general is looked at as abnormal, but like to be an African American atheist is like, oh my God. It's like how could this have happened to you? I just don't understand. It's like, trying to explain that to my father, and he's like a minister, and he's out on a corner with the bullhorns on Sunday and passing out the pamphlets, and it's like, it's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of embarrassing, right now, but, and it has changed our relationship, significantly. But, it's just one of those things you just learn to deal with over time. Hopefully, things will change, and, but, it sucks. And a second thing I wanted to touch, I'm pretty sure everyone's heard about this, the Atheist Plus, I guess the upgraded atheist, whatever that's supposed to mean. What's like what's the distinction between how do you make the distinction between an atheist Atheist Plus and humanist? I don't understand. I'm trying to make sense of all this stuff, and it's kind of complicated. I always thought that you're an atheist, you don't believe in God, that's it. Then comes this other.
Yeah, they did come in with some other stuff, and someone brought that up last week on the show, and I was supposed to do some research, and I hate to say that I did not. I'll look into that this week, and maybe we'll have a little bit of a topic on it, because I do know I've seen some stuff about an Atheist Plus post and so on and so forth. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but we'll look into it. It might be an interesting topic. I do have a question for you, though, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, shoot it. I love questions.
Great. Have you found the reception from atheists to be good?
You mean what, in person, or social networking, or
Well, obviously, we brought up the discrimination part of this with the religion, and you saying that it's not accepted by the black community for you to be an atheist. Now, how has the atheist community accepted you?
I think the atheist community, I don't know what I would do without them. It's like becoming like a new family. It's been well, for the most part, I've had I've been welcomed with open arms by all the the non-believers that I've encountered in person and through social networking. Rachel here, she's a wonderful atheist. I do enjoy her tweets, and I don't know. Although there are some atheists I come across, we do have a little friction, because you have some that don't believe in a God, but yet they still believe in something other of the supernatural, and it's kind of weird, because normally the atheists I come across are just, we don't believe in anything supernatural unless there's evidence for it, and that's pretty much that. And then, people, they're 50-50 wishy-washy, and I don't know, there's friction there, and it's I don't really know how to deal with that, but yeah, but I get a lot of friction, mainly from the African Americans. It's like I'm a sellout or something, or there's something deeper than that. I'm selling out my race, or I don't know what that's all about. But I just can't force myself to.
Well, I hate to hear that you're going through that from that community, but I'm glad to hear that the atheist community has accepted you well. That's great. That was the answer I was hoping to get. That was the answer I was hoping for.
Yeah. It's been pretty dandy. You guys have a wonderful podcast. I've heard a lot of them. I'm definitely going to put this one in my top 3 next to the American Atheist. show and the what's that other one? The maybe am I allowed to promote other ones? I can't. Can I say other?
You can talk.
Yeah.
You can talk about anything you want on this show. Yes.
Oh yeah, the American Atheist, definitely one of my personal favorites. And then you got a couple of other ones out there. They're kind of wishy-washy. They don't really, the topics kind of suck. And I like the topics here. You guys, hit them hard. I like the way you handled that last Fierce. He definitely needed some. He definitely needed some verbal, refreshing.
Right,
that's
we're almost
it.
out of time here, so I'm gonna just wrap up real quick. It's